All right, welcome in. Thanks everybody for waiting. I know a little bit later than normal. We gave it a little bit of a gap in between Monday Night Football, Dallas Cowboys beating the Chargers. 49ers don't know what that's like, a close game against the Cowboys. Well, I guess they do from last year, but the Cowboys go from just getting stomped by the 49ers 42-10 to squeaking one out on the road. 20-17 against the Chargers. Anyway, it's time for 49ers grades against the Browns. All of you know that I like to give this a little bit of time because I want to watch the tape. I want to see what the other evaluations are. I want to see some of the more advanced numbers that take a while before they're published after the game. And now we're at that point. So we can go through this position by position, grade the 49ers' first loss of this 2022 of this 2023 season. So without further ado, I have a lot of the graphics ready. I have the grades ready, and we're going to go through this position by position. I like to invert it every week. So last week we started with quarterback. This week we're going to start at the bottom with the 49ers secondary. Special teams is going to be mixed in there somewhere as well. So here we go. We're starting with the secondary. I'm going to give these guys a B. I think the 49ers defense as a whole objectively played well. The run defense was a problem. We're going to get to that in a second. But the secondary, the pass defense, 49ers are the second best pass defense right now, efficiency-wise, in all of football. In fact, they trail only the Cleveland Browns in terms of pass defense. And we saw how good that Cleveland secondary and pass rush was at limiting efficiency of the 49ers pass offense. But you look at this, the x-axis is pass defense. The y-axis is run defense. Well, the 49ers are below average run defense-wise. We're going to have to take a look at that in a bit. But as you can see here, there's only one team further to the right, and it's the Cleveland Browns. Deommodore Lenoir has 4 interceptions over his past 9 games, dating back to the last playoffs. That's an elite pace. It's on pace for 7 to 8 interceptions for a 17-game season. So Deommodore Lenoir, 7 to 8 interceptions, that usually leads the league, right? So that's right around the top. Richard Sherman, his biggest season, I think, was 8 interceptions back in the day, probably 2012, 2013. So Deommodore Lenoir is doing special stuff for the 49ers right now when it comes to taking the football away. It started in the postseason last year. His confidence was building down the stretch run of the last regular season, but the postseason's where he really turned a corner, and he's not been a liability at all throughout the first part of this 2023 regular season. Charvarius Ward, we know he's been dealing with that foot injury. He's been on and off the 49ers injury report since September. He gave up a big catch to Amari Cooper in this game, and I think that when I look at the replay of that, I don't see how Charvarius could have played that any better. Amari Cooper just went up and grabbed the football. Sometimes players make plays, and they're paid on the other side too. So Cooper delivered a big play against Mooney Ward, and he also delivered a big play against Lenoir. When Lenoir, to me, it seemed like he just slipped and fell. There might have been a little bit of a push from Amari Cooper. This was on the other side, so you saw Cooper testing out both of the 49ers cornerbacks in this game. Unfortunately for the 49ers, those 2 plays, especially the one against Lenoir where Lenoir slipped and fell, that led to a Browns score. And obviously every single Browns score in this game ended up being a difference in their victory. So I can't give the secondary more than a B, just because Cooper did register a couple of those explosives against them. Sure, they weren't, critically deficient plays from the 49ers as far as secondary play went. One, you saw a slip and fall. The other one, you saw Cooper beat Charvarius Ward with just a sensational catch. So I can't give the 49ers an A when they didn't perform to the level of suffocation on defense, but I can't give them any worse than a B because they did so much good in the secondary. And I'm not even counting the Tashawn Gibson penalty against them, because I think that, even if you think that it followed the letter of the law, you cannot possibly argue that Tashawn Gibson could have done anything differently. Talanoa Hufanga did miss 3 tackles in this football game. Isaiah Oliver got sucked into some run action in this football game that I think hurt the 49ers run defense. But even on that front, Isaiah Oliver was deployed as a blitzer by Steve Wilks, and he delivered what could have been another game-changing play, but it was ruled a forward pass from PJ Walker. It was the blitz at the end of the first half. To the naked eye, it seemed like a fumble. Even on replay to many people, including myself, it seemed like a fumble. It was probably too close to technically overturn. I can't believe that officials didn't initially react with the thought that it was a fumble. But either way, Isaiah Oliver has earned Steve Wilks' trust when it comes to some of these blitzes, when it comes to bringing pressure off of the edge to supplement the 49ers pass rush, heat up opposing teams that might be thinking about quick release. You got to be on the QB in a hurry if that's the case. Everybody's going to max protect against the 49ers, trying to get rid of the ball quickly because they respect that pass rush and the four players rushing from the defensive line so much. So when you bring extra pressure, with the assumption that other team, that other quarterback is going to be trying to get the ball out really quickly. And you've got to be there quickly. And I think Oliver has timed his blitzes really well. Unfortunately for the 49ers, that one didn't quite hit home. Anyway, B is the grade for the secondary. Thought they were good. I don't think they were perfect. B means good. Linebackers in this game, they were missing Dre Greenlaw, but Demetrius Flanagan-Foles played really well. He was the 49ers' new number 3. So what happened is Greenlaw's the number 2. Oren Burks was bumped up from 3 to 2. Flanagan-Foles, because the 49ers wanted that veteran presence, moved up from 4 to 3. And DFF, he had a nice pass breakup on that little curl route in the second half. That was good stuff. I thought he was in on some good run-stopping action for the 49ers in this game as well. Oren Burks had 4 pressures because there was a lot of blitzing happening from Steve Wilks. He was trying to heat up PJ Walker. So Oren Burks was getting in on the quarterback on some of those blitz calls, but I don't think that he was particularly good in the run in this game as the 49ers second linebacker. I thought that he was a lot better as a supplementary third, playing that strong side spot in prior games. The 49ers did really miss Dre Greenlaw in this one. Again, 160 rushing yards for the Cleveland Browns. It's too many. I asked Kyle Shanahan about it today. Shanahan actually had a nuanced answer that I can share with you right now. We have the transcript right here. So why don't I read this answer about the 49ers run defense from Kyle Shanahan. So basically, I asked Kyle, following up on my question from yesterday about the run defense after the game, now that you've had a chance to watch the film, what was your appraisal of the run defense? And do you have some ideas on what they can do to improve? That was my question. And here's Kyle Shanahan. Yeah, I was disappointed in it. I'm not sure the exact stat compared to the others, but if I had to guess, it was our most missed tackles on the year. Side note, Shanahan is correct. 10 missed tackles for the 49ers. First time they were in double digits this season. I thought they got our edges way too much, just blocking down on our DNs and getting around. We played a lot more two-shell defense, and when you play two-shell defense, you're a little bit behind in the run game. But we've been able to stop guys pretty good in that way. And then when they got our ends and we didn't get our safeties downhill, they bled us out too much. And when you add on a couple of those missed tackles and everything, it was way too much, especially when you've got a quarterback coming in who hasn't started yet. The best way to make that guy uncomfortable is to take away the run game. And with 160 yards in that, we obviously didn't. That was disappointing, especially on the last 2 drives. So, as you can tell, Shanahan was assigning blame all across the run defense. The ends not setting the edges well enough. The linebackers not flowing well enough. The missed tackles go and can be blamed on the entire defense. And I know that Oren Burks had a couple of those missed tackles for the 49ers. So anyway, I think, you balance out the linebacker grade with the fact that they didn't have Dre Greenlaw. That's a big loss. You can't really hold that against the linebackers who were in the game. And you do acknowledge that Fred Warner had an interception early on that the 49ers offense should have capitalized on. He was playing a curl route, stepped in front of the PJ Walker pass. The offense didn't capitalize on it. They didn't get a single point out of it. They missed the 54-yard field goal. Jake Moody missed the 54-yard field goal a few plays later. But the screen pass immediately after the interception got blown up. That was the Christian McCaffrey 8-yard loss. The 49ers pushed themselves out of the field goal range that Fred Warner gave them. If they hadn't done that, if they had just successfully kicked the field goal after the interception, well, the 49ers probably win this football game, right? So big bonus points for the linebacker interception, bonus points for some of the other plays that Fred Warner made in this game. But then bonus points for Demetrius Flanagan-Foles knocking away a pass as the third linebacker. But then you take some points away and you've got to grade it on a curve because Oren Burks wasn't as good as he could have been, but he was the second linebacker instead of the third linebacker. They were missing Dre Greenlaw. All in all, the defensive performance wasn't terribly shoddy. They gave up too much on the ground. I get it, but they only gave up those, 19 points on this game? That should be enough to win. So I give the linebackers a B. Defensive line, I give a C for many reasons, but what you heard from Kyle Shanahan there is accurate. The defensive line wasn't good enough against the run. They got beaten to the edge too much. They got blocked too often on the edge. They didn't set the most rigid edge. And then they over pursued. Kyle Shanahan said, especially the last two drives were disappointing. Well, if you talk about the last two drives, you can watch this right here. This is the big run from Jerome Ford. And you'll see it very, very clearly on the end zone angle. But Javon Kinlaw absolutely overcommits at the line of scrimmage. He's working against 77, right guard, Wyatt Teller. Kinlaw's in the backfield. Trap play works. Jerome Ford blasts right by him. So that there's a lack of discipline up front for the 49ers. And then, this goes to the linebackers too. Fred Warner misses a diving tackle. You got guys all over the field missing tackles. Lenore missed a tackle there. Tashawn Gibson finally was able to trip him up alongside Talanoa Hufanga. But, the pass rush was not an issue for the 49ers when we talk about the defensive line. It was the run defense that was an issue. So I'm constantly balancing a couple things when I give out these grades. As you can tell, the pass rush right here, for pressure. Oren Burks is not part of the defensive line, but he's a supplementary blitzer. Cleveland Farrell, season high 3 pressures. Randy Gregory, he was great. Randy Gregory was really good. 49ers happy with him. I made a whole video about him earlier, so you could look that up. But he had 2 tackles for loss. I saw him fighting off Jawan Jones, who's 130 pounds heavier than him in the run game. That was impressive. Drake Jackson 2, Nick Bosa 2. Hargrave had a pressure. Hargrave's pressure was the one that led to the Lenore interception. Got his hand up in PJ Walker's face. That was a big play in this game. Probably should have won the 49ers this game. They won the turnover battle, but then they leaked that yardage late, and the offense didn't roar to life until the final drive, and the special teams with Jake Moody wasn't up to par, so they lost. But you look at the pass rushing numbers, there's nothing wrong with 20 pressures. The Browns had 19, and the Browns had an overpowering pass rushing performance. So this performance in the 49ers, pass rushing wise, was really damn good as well. The problem is they didn't stop the run. 160 yards on 4.7 per carry won't get it done. They're going to have to fix that, and that's why the defensive line gets a C. Offensive line, these guys get a D. Here are the pressures allowed, and there are several asterisks, caveats, whatever you want to say. But Williams allowed 4. He was working a lot against Myles Garrett, but Trent Williams played on a hurt ankle. He didn't want Jalen Moore to be exposed to Myles Garrett. So Trent Williams hurt, not the same as Trent Williams healthy. He fought through it, and he was so disappointed after that field goal missed at the end. Almost threw his helmet. I just saw the TV replay of that today. And you could see why. He put his body out on the line for the 49ers. And it was a tough game against one of the best defenses of the last 50 years throughout the first 5 games of this season for the Cleveland Browns. Pass rush pinning its ears back. But the 49ers, they didn't do well in the run game blocking wise, especially in the second half. They penalized themselves too much. The interior gave up a lot of pressure. 8 pressures is quite a bit for the interior to give up. If there's one player who acquitted himself decently well in this game, it was actually Colton McKivitz. And maybe that's good news for the 49ers. McKivitz continues to deliver solid games. He's not getting beaten all that often. Only one pressure given up in this game. You know that Trent Williams is going to come around. You just have to get him healthy. It's that interior, I think, that continues to be worrisome, especially with Spencer Burford giving up those 3 pressures. Obviously, Jake Brendel's coming off a good season, but I think he's given up a little bit more than he has last year. The 49ers offensive line, they're not good enough. And there are very few offensive lines who are good enough. So I don't want to make this sound over dramatic, but they're not good enough to play a game against an elite defensive front with its ears pinned back. They have to play this downhill. And I get it. There are reasons why they didn't play it downhill. One, Brandon Ayuk dropped that pass. But even on the play that Brandon Ayuk dropped the pass, I mean, the offensive line was pretty hopelessly beaten. And the only way that that turned into a near highlight for the 49ers is because Brock Purdy made a sensational throw against a whole heck of a lot of pressure. Here, I have it for you. We can put this up. Check this out. This is the time of throw from Brock Purdy to Brandon Ayuk on the drop bomb. You could see a whole host of 49ers not blocking anybody because they've already been beaten. They're kind of clumped up over here. All your interior guys, Brendel, Banks. There's Colton McKivitz, one of the exterior guys. It's not good. You have Zadarius Smith bearing down on Brock Purdy, who gets drilled as he threw this football. 2 guys bearing down on him. Myles Garrett waiting in the wings. So even on a play that would have helped out the offensive line by loosening things up for the run game, had Brandon Ayuk caught the football, so would have given the 49ers a nicer lead. Even on this play, Brock Purdy had to beat a pass rush that had beaten his offensive line. So I give him a D, and the reason it's not an F is because the 49ers did run the football with some effectiveness. They were over 100 yards rushing. The first drive, they marched right down the field, kept Cleveland on its heels. There were all runs and a screen pass to Christian McCaffrey, the shovel screen. That was the touchdown. So it's not an F performance, but they certainly have to be a lot better. So it goes from F to D for the 49ers offensive line because of some of the good run blocking that we saw, and they held up on that final drive that set up the game-winning field goal attempt. But in between that, so many of this offense's struggles came because these guys were in situations like this. They weren't given Purdy time, and they were, in general, struggling against some of the run blitzes that the Browns were aggressively bringing up the middle. Now, a lot of this stuff is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If you're unable to run the football and block properly for running the football, then you're not, the defensive is just going to crowd the line more, and they're going to be able to pin their ears back more against a drop back passing attack. So the drop back passing attack has to defeat the supercharged pass rush to put that pass rush on its heels against the run. So that's why quarterback is such an important position. Brock Purdy has to deliver the impossible, a great throw in this situation, which he did, but then Brandon Ayuk also has to catch it. And if that doesn't work, if a play like that doesn't click, well, then the defensive line is never going to call off the dogs. They're going to keep on coming at you. And when it's one of the best defensive lines in recent memory, you're going to be in a whole lot of trouble. All right, receivers and tight ends. Moving on to these guys. Give them a C. What I need to do is pop open some of the numbers just so I can fairly go through the catches, the yards, and we can go there. Ayuk was targeted 10 times, but he had only 4 catches for 76 yards. 2 of those came on the final drive. So before the final drive, 8 targets, 2 catches. That's not very efficient for Brandon Ayuk. The long was the 33-yarder that put the 49ers in business there at the end. I thought Jawan Jennings was really damn good today. Jawan Jennings helped raise this grade for the 49ers. And I should say Sunday because it wasn't today. 2 catches, 26 yards. One of them was the big out pattern there at the end, right before the field goal try. Another one was a second down intermediate kind of seam route He was breaking across the middle of the field. So maybe a little bit of a skinny post, but it was 15 yards downfield. That Jennings, he's not an alligator arms kind of guy. He climbed the ladder, went up and got it. That was a really, really impressive throw and catch from Jawan Jennings, who in a game that Deebo Samuel exited, in a game that Christian McCaffrey exited, the 49ers needed supplementary weapons to step up. And I thought Jawan really did. McCaffrey, 3 catches for 9 yards. I guess I'm not going to count him in receivers and tight ends. Kittle, not involved enough. Only a catch for a yard. And in the past, the 49ers had used him to beat the type of cover one defense, the aggressive cover one defense that the Browns had been throwing at him. But the fact that Kittle was not involved more than he was shows you that the 49ers were a little bit out of whack. And maybe it was the Deebo Samuel injury because he was going to be so featured in this offense. Maybe it was the Christian McCaffrey injury taking away the check down game on top of that. But Kittle's got to be more involved in a game where there is such aggressiveness from the opposing defense against the 49ers run. You got to capitalize on that by springing that tight end out for some routes that are earlier on in Purdy's progression. We saw the 49ers capitalize on it against the Cowboys, and you got to give Purdy some of that credit for hitting Kittle as a later read, possibly on that first touchdown. The 49ers need to see more of it again. The good news for them is that you don't face a defense as good as this Cleveland Browns defense all too often. All right, running back. I think these guys deserve an A. Thought Christian McCaffrey ran really well when he had his chances to run. 11 for 43 officially in this game for the 49ers. But that first drive, I mean, it wasn't all McCaffrey. We saw Jordan Mason carry in there. We saw the Deebo Samuel jet sweep to start the game. But Christian was running hard. The long there was the 27-yarder. He had a couple other runs where he gained positive yardage, but the 49ers then just started getting behind the sticks too much with some self-inflicted wounds, with some big plays from Cleveland, such as the screen that they blew up to Christian McCaffrey. It was a really good defense. They're playing an elite defense, and they contained him. That being said, I don't know what McCaffrey could have done differently in this game that would have yielded a better result. I thought that he played up to his potential. I thought that Jordan Mason, 5 carries, 27 yards, 5.4 per carry, lived up to his potential. Mitchell got a couple carries, didn't do much with them, negative yardage on those. It sounds like Mitchell is still in the pecking order above McCaffrey, not above McCaffrey, above Jordan Mason if he gets a full week of practice. He just didn't because he didn't show up till Thursday last week coming off the injury. If McCaffrey can't play, and he was undergoing those MRIs today, if McCaffrey cannot play, then I think they're still going to lean Mitchell if he gets a full week of practice over Mason. But I wouldn't freak out about it because both of those guys are obviously going to play, and they're going to mix and match them depending on situation if McCaffrey can't go against the Vikings. I will say this, McCaffrey and Mason both averaged over 4 yards after contact per run, which just goes to show you this Browns defense was swarming, but both of these guys were fighting. And that's why I give the running back position an A. All right, finally, quarterback. It's a complicated grade. I give it C-. Statistically, Purdy wasn't good. 12 of 25, didn't have 100 passing yards until the last drive. Threw his first interception in 150 attempts. Looked like the ball was slipping out of his hand a little bit. But to that, that criticism and that talk is so ridiculous. What quarterback in the history of football has been better in the rain? The answer is no one. Like, a wet football creates throwing issues. It created throwing issues from Joe Montana. It created throwing issues for Steve Young. And obviously, wet weather, you don't want wet weather because it's going to create issues for any quarterback. And I think it did for Brock Purdy yesterday. But he had misfires, right? He also had a great throw to Brandon Ayuk that I talked about a little bit earlier. A great throw to Jawan Jennings on that intermediate route. He missed a Christian McCaffrey. It was definitely a mixed bag. But the end of the mixed bag saw Brock Purdy drive the 49ers into potential game-winning field goal range amidst adversity against the number one defense in football. Look at all the bad games that Tom Brady had throughout his career, especially early on. But realize that he became known for delivering when it mattered in crunch time. And Brock Purdy absolutely delivered when it mattered in this football game. We could even watch. And I don't think this is getting enough run because I mean, this is the significant story of Brock Purdy in this game, that even when he saw so many struggles, he was able to turn it around when it actually mattered to get the 49ers in position to win this football game. And the drive, I mean, it didn't start out auspiciously. There's the first down incompletion. Then Purdy tries to go deep to Brandon Ayuk. That doesn't work either. This Browns defense is all over the 49ers. But once he gets it cooking, once he trusts his guys, especially Brandon Ayuk, to win on one-on-one situations, you'll notice that this turns in a hurry. I want to replay this because this just shows you the Browns wide 9. Look how wide the defensive linemen are, and look how quickly they converge the pocket. I don't think Trent was healthy. Letting a man run the hoop around him. Now, I mean, this is not just any pass rush. This is the Browns pass rush, and that's Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett runs the hoop around Williams, and he's there to bother Brock Purdy's deep throw. That's a quickly collapsing pocket. There was no real crazy English on that play from the 49ers. Ayuk straight go. Purdy didn't take an extra hitch through that football, and he was already pressured. This is where it gets rolling. The pass interference penalty on the attempt to Jawan Jennings. Will we get a better look at it here? I'm not sure, but that got the 49ers out of a 3rd and 10. No, we won't get a better look at it there. Officials threw the flag. That one definitely went in the 49ers' favor, and now they have the ball at the 32, probably with, a little bit more than a minute to go. And this is where Purdy starts trusting Brandon Ayuk to win one-on-one. That's what you have to do. If you watch this route at the bottom of the screen, it's a Brandon Ayuk special. He's obviously in single coverage. He's going to work in, change direction, step out. Purdy puts the ball exactly where it has to be to make Ayuk seem very open, which he was. But if you hit him while he's open, you give Ayuk a chance to start to accelerate. You set up yards after the catch if you're Brock Purdy. And Ayuk does the rest, gets the 49ers all the way down to the 42. Again, the Browns are pinning their ears back. Myles Garrett on the right side, Zadarius Smith on the left side. They're rushing standing up here. Spin move from Garrett. You're collapsing Trent Williams in with that injured ankle into Brock Purdy. So it's not an easy throw to make with Trent Williams and Myles Garrett falling in your lap, but he makes it, and Brandon Ayuk takes off. So, I mean, not easy. Not easy is the theme here for Brock Purdy. This is nails execution with everything on the line. Try to go outside to Jawan Jennings. This was a really tough throw with the defender underneath. He's got to get that one high and wide enough to not be picked. And he did, but it also was too high and wide for Jawan Jennings to hold on. One of his 4 targets on the game. It gets better here, though, for the 49ers. They still need a little bit more for the field goal range. Well done. Brandon Ayuk on the slant. Brock Purdy saw that he had that leverage for the slant pattern because the leverage for the coverage was going to the outside, and he found Brandon Ayuk. Good job. So they feel decent about Moody at this point. They probably should have, this is the one that made them feel excellent about Moody. It was a great throw on an out pattern. It was 3rd and 2. But they probably should have been thinking more aggressively after this in terms of setting their rookie kicker up for success. I could tell you the reason they weren't, though, because even on a fairly simple out concept like that, look how quickly Purdy gets heated up. It's Myles Garrett working against Trent Williams. And Myles Garrett's around Trent Williams, wrapping Brock Purdy up by now. Literally by now. This is a fairly quick out pattern. It's 3rd and 2. Right? It's 3rd and 2, and Myles Garrett is on Brock Purdy in about 2.5 seconds, maybe quicker, right around Trent Williams. I mean, Trent was hurt, so I'm not putting this against Trent. I'm talking about the greatness of Myles Garrett, and I'm talking about the degree of difficulty that was on the table for Brock Purdy in this game. It is snap and release. If this ball is not out extremely quickly, he's getting taken to the ground by Myles Garrett. He gets it off to Jawan Jennings, and that picks up the first down for the 49ers. That is a hell of a throw probably worthy of taking a look at the all 22 one more time. Look, Garrett's on him. He runs right by Trent Williams. He's on him. Here comes the throw. This is a cross-hash throw. Very difficult. The casual fan will not understand how hard that throw is, especially with Myles Garrett taking you on, and Brock Purdy delivers. If that doesn't have arm strength, if that doesn't have velocity, it's a pick six. So at that point, I think when you see this happen and you're Kyle Shanahan, you don't want to expose Brock Purdy anymore. So you say, okay, 41 yards is going to be close enough, or they go one running play, but they're not exposing Brock Purdy anymore. And they don't want to expose the offense to another running play, a fumble opportunity beyond this one. So they say, let's just send Jake Moody out. And that was the calculus for the 49ers. Unfortunately for them, Moody apparently needed a few extra yards. They hope it's just a growing experience for him, because I will say, after all that my grade for special teams has to be F. Special teams failed. Moody missed from 54. Moody missed from 41. Now, Robbie Gould also missed from 41 in a game-winning situation last year against the Raiders. Kickers miss. Quarterbacks miss throws. Quarterbacks have bad games. But in this particular game, if you miss the difference between a win and a loss, quite literally, for Jake Moody, and you missed earlier on, I have to give you a failing grade. He's 9 of 11 now. You don't give up on the stock just because of one bad game. Perhaps he just needed to get it out of his system, kind of like he got those preseason misses out of his system and proceeded to make several straight kicks. But Jake Moody's definitely under a microscope right now, and we'll see how he responds to it moving forward. As far as the quarterback grade goes, well, I think that C- is fair because, again, Brock was under 50% completion percentage. He was missing a lot of passes. He threw his first interception. They had -5 yards from halftime until the very final drive, net yards. But he also did enough to set them up to very feasibly win the game at the end. And that really matters. So I take a failing grade and I combine that with some very good stuff at the end when it came through in the clutch. And I combine them and I say C-. Purdy's going to be tough on himself. He's going to want to be better. But you saw the tape. It wasn't easy what he was trying to execute there against that Browns pass rush. It's also why I gave the 49ers offensive line a D. They didn't give him enough time. So if you want to go degree of culpability for this loss, the offensive line has a lower grade than the quarterback. All right, those are the grades. Hope you enjoyed them. We'll talk to everybody soon. I'll add up the GPA later. Too tired to do that right now. But that was our Cleveland coverage. We're going to turn the page. We're going to start talking about the Minnesota Vikings tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed the Browns coverage. Go check out the food from Cleveland, too. I put that up. There's a San Francisco-Cleveland connection in that video that I put up. It's called Food for Thought on Brock Purdy. I encourage you to watch it because the food might put you in a better mood if you need that kind of pick-me-up. All right. Everybody have a great Monday night.